History Secrets.
Today we are going to enter one of the most controversial topics in contemporary geopolitical debate. A topic that requires care, critical analysis, and awareness that many interpretations are merely analytical hypotheses. When intense conflicts occur on the international stage, different narratives emerge to explain what is happening. Some focus on political factors, others on historical factors, and others seek cultural or religious interpretations. The conflict involving Israel and Gaza has provoked exactly this kind of narrative dispute. Images of destruction, civilian suffering, and strong emotional reactions around the world. For some analysts, understanding these events requires looking at broader patterns in human history, especially the way societies use violence in times of conflict. Throughout history, different civilizations have developed symbolic rituals linked to war. Some of these rituals involved public demonstrations of power. The Aztecs, for example, carried out religious ceremonies associated with human sacrifice before or after military campaigns. These practices had both religious and political meanings. In other ancient cultures, such as some Mediterranean societies, historical accounts mention similar rituals, although many of these records are debated among historians. The Romans also celebrated military victories through public ceremonies known as triumphs. Victorious generals paraded through the city accompanied by prisoners of war. These events served to reinforce the power of the state, and also to unify the population around military achievements. Some analysts use these historical examples to discuss how violence can acquire symbolic meanings in political contexts, not only as a military instrument, but also as a strategic message. Within this interpretative logic, certain violent events can be seen as demonstrations intended to influence public perception, both inside and outside a country. In the case of the current conflict in the Middle East, different interpretations attempt to explain the motivations behind military actions. Some focus on security objectives. Others point to internal political dynamics. There is also a line of analysis that observes how intense conflicts can strengthen national cohesion, especially when a society perceives that it faces external threats. This phenomenon is not exclusive to any specific region. It appears repeatedly in the history of different countries. Wars often produce moments of strong social mobilization. Populations unite in the face of perceived dangers. Ancient military strategies sometimes explored exactly this principle, creating situations in which soldiers had no possibility of retreat. In Chinese military history, for example, there is a tactic known as fighting with the river at your back. An army is placed facing the enemy with a natural obstacle behind it. With no possibility of escape, soldiers are forced to fight with maximum determination. The logic is simple. When there is no alternative, group cohesion increases. Some analysts use this metaphor to describe situations in which governments or societies perceive that they are cornered, when they believe there is no easy way out of a conflict. In these contexts, political decisions can become more radical, and national rhetoric can intensify. It is important to remember that interpretations of this kind are only analytical models. They attempt to explain collective behaviors observed in extreme situations. But real conflicts are always more complex. They involve multiple factors: historical, political, religious, and strategic. In addition, narratives about conflicts often reflect different ideological positions. Each side of the debate emphasizes different aspects of reality. For this reason, understanding international conflicts requires a critical approach. comparing sources, analyzing historical contexts, and recognizing the complexity of events. The objective of analyzing theories and interpretations is not to automatically accept any narrative, but to expand the ability to understand how different worldviews attempt to explain dramatic events. Especially in a world where information circulates rapidly, and where competing narratives dispute global attention. In the end, studying these interpretations reveals something important about the very nature of international politics. Conflicts are rarely only military. They are also narrative. Each side tries to explain its actions, justify its decisions, and influence how the world interprets events. Understanding these narratives does not resolve conflicts, but it helps to better understand the forces that shape the contemporary international landscape. As this analysis continues, a central question then arises: why do certain conflicts seem to intensify even when the international consequences are extremely negative? In many cases, military actions generate global condemnation. Protests emerge in different countries. International public opinion reacts with indignation. But, paradoxically, these external reactions can sometimes strengthen the internal cohesion of a society in conflict. When a country feels that it is being criticized or attacked by external forces, a known psychological dynamic can emerge, the so-called Siege effect. In this effect, external criticism is perceived not only as political opposition, but as existential threats. This can lead to a strengthening of collective identity. Populations unite around national symbols. Governments begin to emphasize narratives of survival, of defense, of resistance against external forces. This phenomenon appears in various historical contexts. During wars, external criticism often reinforces internal solidarity. Even deeply divided societies can temporarily unite in the face of a common enemy. Some analysts argue that, in certain cases, political leaders may even exploit this mechanism. Intense conflicts generate emotional mobilization. Emotional mobilization can strengthen internal political support, especially in moments of crisis. This does not mean that conflicts are created solely for political reasons, but it means that conflicts can produce significant political effects. Another element frequently discussed involves religious or ideological narratives. In some lines of thought, historical events are interpreted within eschatological views. Eschatology is the study of scenarios about the end of times, or final transformations of the world order. In different religious traditions, these narratives describe great confrontations between opposing forces. Some analysts suggest that religious interpretations may influence political views in certain contexts, especially when leaders or movements use these narratives to mobilize support. However, it is important to emphasize that these interpretations represent only one among many possible explanations. Modern conflicts generally result from a complex combination of factors: territorial disputes, colonial history, national security. In addition to economic and internal political factors, reducing any conflict to a single cause rarely captures the full reality. Even so, studying different interpretations helps to understand how narratives are used in political disputes. Because wars do not happen only on the military field, they also happen in the symbolic field. Governments, movements, and leaders compete for control of narratives. They try to influence how the public interprets events. And in an era of social media and instant global communication, These narratives spread rapidly. Images, speeches, official statements. Everything becomes part of a battle for legitimacy, a battle for influence over global public opinion. In this scenario, understanding different interpretations becomes essential, even those that seem controversial. Not because all of them are true, but because they reveal how different groups perceive the world. And these perceptions, whether true or not, influence real political decisions. They influence alliances. They influence strategies. For this reason, analyzing geopolitical theories always requires a critical stance, separating verifiable facts from speculative interpretations, and recognizing that international reality is rarely simple. Perhaps this is one of the most important lessons when studying contemporary conflicts: the constant need to question narratives, compare sources, and understand the complexity of the relationships between power, politics, and society. Only then can we begin to understand why seemingly incomprehensible events continue to occur on the international stage, and why debates about these events remain so intense around the world. Throughout history, many events have been recorded, but others have disappeared over time. Lost manuscripts, forgotten accounts, evidence that never reached us. But this raises an inevitable question. How many truths of history do we really know? Because some secrets of history are still waiting to be revealed.